back to my channel. My name is Stacey Flowers and I am so excited that you are here. For those of you who are not familiar with me, let me tell you a little bit about my background from a personal perspective. I became a mom when I was 17 years old and a senior in high school. My son is 15, he will be 16 in July, and in this video I'm going to review a book that has helped me to cultivate an amazing relationship with my son, both in his younger years, but especially now that he is a teenager. So if you guys are interested in learning a little bit more about my parenting philosophy and books that served me throughout transitioning from being a teen mom to being a young mother and now a mother of a teen, please keep watching. So I'm super excited to review this book. I love this book. I really adore this author in general. I've read another one of his books that was specifically focused on relationships. So I'm super excited to talk to you guys about the book. I do want to provide just a little bit of background, because I think that, you know, that's just the theme of my channel. I talk about sensitive things. Money, just like parenting, is a very sensitive topic. So I just want to make sure that everybody understands that in this video, everything that I'm sharing is my opinion, and I understand that everyone has, every individual person has a different parenting philosophy, and based on your parenting philosophy, you may find that this book is not useful, but if you have a similar parenting philosophy as me, you will find that this book is incredibly useful. And so with that being said, let me kind of just tell you, my parenting philosophy. I believe that I am my son's, all of my future children too, I believe that I'm their parent for their entire life. However, I also, inside of me being their parent for their entire life, and what I mean by that is some parenting philosophies, they believe that their parenting stops at like 18 or 21 or at a particular age in terms of actual parenting, right? But I believe that I'm going to be parenting my child for their entire life. I also believe, however, that from, pregnancy to about 18, 21, I have the greatest amount of influence, and I get to provide the greatest amount of guidance and training during that particular season in terms of like pouring into my child. Once they officially become an adult, my role as a parent certainly transitions, but I'm not someone who believes that at a certain age, like, I'm no longer my child's parent. They're grown now. They don't need a parent like that. I don't have that sort of a philosophy. And so some of the principles in this book, they work with the idea that like you are your child's parent for life. So yeah, that's one of my philosophies. And then also inside of parenting or pouring into my child within those formative years where I have the greatest amount of influence, I believe it is my responsibility as a parent to teach my child how to be a healthy adult, or to guide them into becoming a healthy adult. I believe that, what I say, what I do, what I don't do, what I do say, all of that has an impact. All of that swirls around, and I get to determine whether or not I add a healthy adult to society or if I don't. And I take that responsibility very seriously. Even becoming a young mother, I made some decisions that a lot of people don't agree with, but I made those decisions because I want to make sure that my child has the best version of a childhood that they can have, so they can have the best experience in adulthood that they can have. And best is relative to the circumstances in which he was born in. So obviously my son was born to a teen mom. I was 17 when I was pregnant. I was 18 by the time I had him. I was 1 month shy of my 18th birthday. So I was very much a child when I had my son. Immediately after high school, I went straight to college. I was the first person in my family to graduate from high school. Then I went straight to college. My son was with me when I was in college. My first day of classes, he was 3.5 weeks old. So like, he's had a very unique childhood, I would say, and some very unique experiences that are related to the circumstances in which he was born into. But I don't believe that because he was born into a more challenging circumstance, that means that he can't have the opportunity to have a beautiful, amazing life. And a part of the reason why I believe that wholeheartedly is, one, my son is amazing. Like, my human being pretty freaking awesome already. But two, one of the things that I did as a young mother was I educated myself. I never put myself in a position and said, you know, whatever, it's my child, I know best. No, like I read everything in sight about parenting, about children, their stages of development. Like I mean, and this is from when he was a little kid up and until now. And so I never stopped educating myself because you know, I never was anybody's mom before. And the only example of mothering that I have is my own mother. And, you know, that's, if I'm being honest, like there are moments when I was mad at my mom. So it's just like, you know what I mean? It's just like, there's no time period in my life where somebody set me aside and said, okay, this is how you be a mother and this is how you parent. Nobody says that, and from my understanding, nobody does that. And so when we become parents, it is up to us to educate ourselves. Some parents choose to, some parents choose not to. I chose to educate myself, and in me educating myself, I found incredible books. And this particular book is by far one of the best books that I found, especially when it comes to parenting my son. And so the book is called Mother and Son, The Respect Effect. And the premise of the book is to uncover and demystify the common misconceptions about a mother's love and a son's need for respect. And you know, when I picked up this book, you know, I was already super duper excited about it because I had previously read his other book, Love and Respect, which is for relationships. And it talks about how, like, you know, everybody wants to be loved, everybody wants to be respected, but the way in which you show that and the way in which you display that for men and women is very, very different. And I really appreciated that book from a relationship perspective, so I was open to seeing what he had to say for mothers of sons. And when I tell you that this book blew my mind, it literally blew my mind. And then it went on to transform my relationship with my son. And I've always had a fairly good relationship with him, but I've always been, you know, I'm probably like the average mom. You know, I want my son to know that he's loved. I want him to feel my love. I want him to just, you know, I want him to feel safe and loved. And, you know, my overwhelming feeling for my son is that I want him to be happy, I want him to feel safe, and I want him to be loved, right? And so when I'm diving into this book, it helped me to understand that, like, while my primary need and desire is to make sure that my son feels loved, his primary need and desire from me as his mother is to make sure that he feels respected. And it was so hard to wrap my mind around it at first, that, like, me telling my son, you know, I love you, I love you, I love you, that it was an incomplete message, because one of the things that he was desiring was, I respect you, I respect you, I respect you. And making that subtle shift from trying to make sure that your son feels loved to focusing on making sure that your son feels respected has been game changing. And specifically for me, when I got the book, I got it a couple of years ago. And, you know, you guys know that 2016 was a winning year for me. Like, there were so many awesome things. I did a TED Talk. I was all over the place. And then 2017, I plummeted. And, you know, I can only imagine how my son felt during that year. Like, suddenly his mom is just, like, gone and she's not there. And then, like, I wake up in 2017 and I'm like, yeah, I was sick, and I'm so happy that, you know, your dad was taking care of you. But, like, how do you, like, there's a break there. Like, there's trauma there. There's, like, real stuff that happened to my son. And so it's just like, how do I commune and fellowship and love on him in a way that honors and respects the experience that he had with me being sick, but also repairs and mends and heals the bond that, like, I interrupted with my own issues. Like, how do I do that? And in the book, like, it shows you the language that you can use to do that. It also shows you, it helps you to understand, like, and I don't know, for anybody who's watching who's the parent of a teenager, right? Like, so many parents complain about how, like, they don't understand their teenager, they can't connect to their teenager, they don't know what they're doing, what they're thinking, you know, they can't get through to them. And what I found in reading this book and understanding, like, what position you should have when you're just talking to your teenager, when you're disciplining your teenager, when you are, you know, loving on your teenager, especially your son, it's it's an incredible dynamic that I think would be beneficial to anybody who is a mother of a son. And I don't care what age your son is. He gives examples in the book when, if your son is 2, how do you show them respect? Because showing them respect is showing them love, but it's showing them love almost like in their love language, if you will. So whether your son is 2, 20, or 80, like how would you do that as a mother so it fosters this relationship that's super healthy and super constructive for the man that your son is going to become, right? Because that's the other thing, is that like one day your son is going to grow up and he's going to be a man, and some of the ways I find that, you know, I was loving on my son, it was preventing him from, or not preventing, it was stunting something in him that needed to develop so that he can become the man that, you know, he really wants to be in life. And let me see if I can think of an example. Like, I remember, you know, when my son was like really little, he's an only child, so he's been around adults like his whole life, so he's pretty independent, just like naturally, but like also I'm kind of independent too. But anywho, he's fairly independent, and I remember him wanting to, like, you know, pour his own juice and wanting to do this, but like I love doing stuff for my child, and you guys are going to see, if I vlog the experience with him being here for spring break, you guys are going to see, like, I love being a mom. Like, it is like my favorite role ever. And so, you know, when he was little, I would just be like, no, mom's got it, mom's got it. And my son, without fail, he would go to the refrigerator, try to pour it. And, you know, fast forward, so this is probably, he's like 3, 4, 5, 6, always trying to like do independent things. Fast forward to when he's like 10 or 11. For Mother's Day, he was probably 11. For Mother's Day, I remember one day, like, this is, hand to God, woke up and my son was like, Mom, can you bring me my socks? And I was like, yeah, I brought him his socks. And he's like, Mom, can you bring me something from the kitchen? And I'm like, yeah, I got that. And he was just like, Mom, can you iron my clothes? And then I like ironed his clothes, and he was like, Mom, can you do this? Can you do this? And he maybe within like a 2 to 3 hour window asked me to do like 10 to 15 things. And so by the like 10 or 15th thing, I went to him and I'm like, son, why do you keep asking me to do all this stuff that you know how to do? This is what my son said to me. He said, well, it's Mother's Day, and I know that you like to do stuff for me, so I just figured I'd give you what you want on Mother's Day. And I thought to myself, I was like, I cannot believe that like my child is like giving me an opportunity basically to like serve him, but like kind of wait on him hand and foot. But like imagine if he's thinking the gift that I can give to my mom on Mother's Day is to let her do all of these things for me that I clearly can do for myself. Imagine how he's dealing with that, like on the inside. Like he wants to be able to do stuff, and yet I'm like, you know, like blocking that. And so if you take that particular me blocking that and you fast forward that into an adult pattern, it could become problematic, because he could potentially associate a woman's willingness to do everything for him as an act of love, because that's what I did. Or he could potentially decide to just behave helplessly, so that, because he's just like, well, this is just how women are. So I'm unintentionally teaching him this idea. I'm unintentionally like stifling the part of him that wants to just do for himself, because I have a craving to serve him. Like, and that's not healthy. That's like an example of like where it borders on not being healthy. Obviously, you know, in the moment it was comical. It was very beautiful that my son decided to honor me on Mother's Day by letting me like be just over the top.com. But there's so much insight that was really wrapped into that moment, that he's just like, well, I know you like doing everything for me, so let me let you do everything for me. Like, that's also him saying, Mom, I got this, but if you want to, go get my socks. If you want to, iron my clothes. Like, you know, like I'm not a kid anymore. And so what this book really helped me to do was to be able to sort of lay down that the part of the mothering part of me that wants my son to be overly dependent on me, because it fulfills my desire to feel needed and wanted. It helped me to lay that down and pick up this next phase in his life where he is incredibly independent. He doesn't need me to set an itinerary. So there are all these things that, you know, he doesn't need from me, that I wanted to offer to him as a way to let him know that he was loved. And what the book really helps you to do is understand that as a mother, your son is not doubting your love. Like that, like a son, most sons, and obviously I'm running with the premise that you are a present mother, you know, you love your child and you're not working through any other dysfunctions. But what I'm saying is like, as my son, he's not wondering, you know, oh, I wonder if my mom loves me. Like, that's not something that he's thinking through. But he is sometimes probably thinking through, I wonder, does my mom respect me? And at, you know, 2 through 12, maybe he doesn't have the language respect, but by the time they go into their teenage years, they definitely know that they definitely begin to sense and act as if they're missing something, right? And I don't know if you've ever said this as the mother of a son, you know, you act like you don't know that I love you, or you act like you don't know that I care about you. You act like and when we're saying that, I believe that what we are responding to is our sons trying to tell us that I'm not confused about your love, but I am confused as to whether or not you respect me. And because I don't know whether or not you respect me, I am acting out because I'm trying to get your respect. And I think that this is much harder to grasp because rarely do we hear examples of, you know, boys and men and the mother issues. Like that's not like, I mean, it's a thing, but rarely do we hear a woman be like, girl, you know, he got mommy issues, or, you know, he's maybe the language that we would use is he's a mama's boy, but even that doesn't have as much negative connotation as a girl with daddy issues. If I say, oh, that girl has daddy issues, for the most part, and this is a huge general assumption, people can conjure up what a girl with daddy issues looks like. Why? Because we're able to see the effect that a father has on a daughter, right? Much easier, more readily, not easier, but more readily, because that's just a common example, than we are able to see a mother's effect on her son. And so if you're having trouble like wrapping your mind around the like respect, love, I'm not saying that both sons and daughters don't want and need love and respect. They both do. But what I'm saying is what sons need, as they're based on this book, and I have adopted this philosophy, I believe it as well, what sons need while they're growing up, they are not confused about a mother's love for them, they are confused about a mother's respect. And so let's use that in the example of like daughter to father, just to see. And he uses this example in the book, but I just thought it was it was a really good illustration to help cement the concept of respect and love. So imagine if there is a little girl, and that little girl never hears her, and just in this fictitious world, you know, her father's in her life, her mom's in her life, she's, you know, she has her mom and her dad, but in this fictitious world, this little girl grows up with a father who respects her but never tells her that he loves her. Like, never heard her father say, you know what, Stacey, I love you. All this little girl ever heard from her father was, you know what, Stacey, I really respect you. You know what, I respect that about you. You know, Stacey, I have so much respect for you. Do you think that that little girl who has a present father in her life, who, and again, I'm working with present fathers because again, this book is assuming that the mother is present. That little girl who has a present father in her life but never hears, I love you from her father, do you think that would be that you would look at that father and say, you know what, gold star for you, Dad, you're doing a great job because your daughter knows that she's respected? For the most part, again, general assumptions, people would say it's not enough for a father to only respect his daughter. He needs to also love her, and he needs to tell her that he loves her. So what I like about in this book, not that it's not enough, it's incomplete for a father to only respect his daughter. He needs to respect her and he needs to love her, but he also needs to tell her that he loves her, that it's important for a daughter to hear from her father, I love you, especially if he's present in her life, right? In that same way, it's incomplete for a son to only hear from his mother, I love you, I love you, I love you, and not to hear, I respect you, I respect you, I respect you. In psychology, they talk about how your mother and your father are like the examples of like trust and bonding and love and all of these different feelings that then play out in your adult years, right? They if you've gone through any psycho like analysis or therapy or anything like that, likely you've come to the root of what you did or didn't get from your mother and father and so on and so forth. And so what I appreciate about this book is it's helping me to make sure that my son, because I think he knows that he's loved, but when I respect him, he understands that he's loved. In the same way that a daughter knows that she's loved by her father, but when she hears it, that's when she begins to understand it, and she begins to associate, oh, this is what it means to be loved by my father, this is what it means to be respected by my father, and vice versa. So I just think that, you know, the book does a much more colorful job of expressing that example, but that was super powerful, because, you know, you are a mother right now, and you're listening to this, and you are a mother of a son. I want you to think about what it would be like if your son was a little girl who had a father in his life, and that little girl never heard her father say, I love you. That is how our sons feel when they never hear us as mothers say, I respect you, because your son needs to be respected. And it's demonstrated in so many different ways that young boys display their feelings and their emotions. And he talks about that a lot in the book too, just like decoding what your son is saying, and like the honor principle, and how important honor is to your son. And I'm like, you know, there's so many times when my son was trying to be honorable, but I was, again, just stifling it, because I'm like, no, I got it, mom's got it, let me over mother you, over parent you. And he was trying to do the honorable thing and be like, you know, let me show you my strength, let me show you this thing that I can do for you, mom, you know. And I couldn't receive it. I couldn't, you know, let it in. And so this book really helped to soften that aspect, and really helped me to appreciate how my son's heart absorbs my words, my behavior, and my overall intention to send him love. And so if you are a mother of a son, I highly recommend this. You know, again, no matter what stage of mothering a son you are in, like, I cannot emphasize enough how significant this is. Two things that also are in the book are these two acronyms. One is chairs and one is guides. And these two acronyms support you in, chairs supports you in transitioning your language from one of like, I love you, I love you, I love you, to I respect you, I respect you, I respect you. And guides is an acronym that sort of supports you in understanding, like, what are some specific things that you can do for your child? Like, how can you actually, as a parent, guide them, right? And so what the guide acronym says is, and I don't want to get it wrong, so let me, okay. So the guide acronym, it shows you a very practical way of parenting. I don't know if you are anything like me and you've ever felt like, you know, I just don't know what I'm doing. Like, for me, I feel like my son went from like 9 to teenager, like that. And I'm like, whoa, like, what's happening? And what I like about this guide's principles is it reminds you of what you can be doing as a parent while your child is transitioning from stage to stage to stage. So guides is GUIDES. So G stands for giving, and it talks about how there is a healthy way to give to your son as a mother, and that you never, like, that part of you that loves the dependent baby who needs you and blah, 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 like, that part never goes away. It just transitions to another level, because when you're doing that, like, for example, like, I nursed my son, and, you know, that's a form of giving. But, you know, he's 16. I can't give to him from my bosom anymore. I have to figure out, what does it look like to give to him at 16, right? U stands for understanding. And that's really, really important, is that when you are dealing with your son, you seek to understand his motive when he's doing something or when he's not doing something. And again, if you're anything like me and you're parenting a teenager, you ask your son, why did they do that? And my son says, I don't know. That's his go-to answer every time. And it frustrates me, because I'm like, how can you not know? You know, you just did it. But what I realize is that when I actually took a step back, and instead of asking the question, why did you do this? I looked at the whole entire experience of something that he did, and I tried to understand it from his perspective as a teenager, as a boy, as a, you know, just as all of the different factors that are influencing him. Like, the matter is that, like, understanding is important, and when you are seeking to understand, you are looking for their motive, because I think sometimes we look at their actions or the outcome and we don't think about their motive, right? Like, we're not. And when it comes to raising sons, their motive is important, because there's this super high need to be honorable among sons. And so understanding is super, super important. I stands for instructing, right? As a parent, your job is to continue to instruct. 2, 10, 16, the instruction looks a little bit different. Like, at 16, I'm wanting to instruct him more in the ways of trusting himself. At 2, I wanted to instruct him in the ways of learning new things. But at 16, my instruction is primarily based around, okay, how can I build up my son in such a way that he trusts himself? Like, I want you to trust yourself over me, like, because my opinion is always going to be from the outside in. Your opinion is going to be from the inside out. So if you are feeling something in your spirit that says you need to do this, I want you to trust that. But how can I build that up in you as a mother, right? D stands for disciplining, and we have to understand that disciplining is important and that is ongoing. But I like how the guide's acronym, giving, understanding, and instruction, comes before discipline. And that's really important when you are the mother of a son, because I think if you're anything like me, knee-jerk reaction is to go straight to discipline without understanding motive, without having given anything, or without having shared proper instructions. And a really quick, fast example is, I remember when I wanted my son to clean the bathroom. Mind you, I just gave y'all the example of how I'm like the mom who loves to serve and do everything, right? Then one day I woke up and was like, no, he needs to know how to clean the bathroom. So I sent my son to go clean the bathroom. I'm like, go clean the bathroom. Then I went in the bathroom. I'm like, it's not clean right. Go back in there and clean it again. So he goes back in there, he cleans it again. And then I go and I'm like, it's not cleaned right. Then he goes back in there and cleans it again. And so while he's in there, I say to him, I said, if you come out of that bathroom and it is not clean, you are going to get in trouble. So my son comes out of the bathroom. He kind of has like tears in his eyes, and he's under 12 at this age. Kind of has like a little bit of like water in his eyes. And I'm like, what's wrong with you? And he was just like, well, I realize that I'm going to get in trouble. And I was like, you're not going to get in trouble if you clean the bathroom, right? And then he says, Mom, you've never shown me how to clean a bathroom, so I don't even know what cleaning the bathroom right looks like. And I remember in that moment having to be like, you are right. Because if I'm telling myself the truth, I have always cleaned the bathroom, and I've always cleaned it to my standard. And so to send you, and it's simple, right? Like some of you may be thinking, oh, he should be able to figure it out. It's like, no, that's not their job. Like, he's only been on the planet for 9 years. Why does he have to figure out how to clean a bathroom? I've been cleaning the bathroom for over a decade. Well, why don't I just show him how to clean the bathroom before I'm telling him that if he doesn't clean it right, he's going to get in trouble? And it's the same thing with respect to, like, oh, my son doesn't clean his room. Okay, have you shown him how to clean the room? Because it's and here's the thing, it's a difference between going in there, cleaning it, and saying, when you clean your room, I want it to look like this, versus going with your child and saying, this is how you make a bed. Because when they go to the military, what they do? They teach them how to make beds. This is how you iron your clothes. Because in any sort of training, when people go to training, they teach them how to do basic fundamental things. But why do they teach them how to do it? Because they have a standard in their mind, and they understand that these 18-year-old young men and women who are coming into the military don't understand their standard. And what we as mothers of sons have to realize is that our sons don't understand our standards unless we have given them instruction on how to achieve that standard. And so that's just an example of like, why instruction has to come before discipline. Because in that moment, my son was going to get in trouble. I already looked at the bathroom twice. But why was he going to get in trouble? Not for doing something wrong, because it was because I didn't give him the instruction. So that I like this acronym in terms of parenting, because it also shows you sort of the order in which it should go. And order is something that's important to me. The E stands for encouraging. You want to be very encouraging to your son, but you want to, and I like how he breaks down how to be encouraging, but I also like how he breaks down being encouraging from the respectful language versus just being encouraging from the loving language. Me as a mom, I love to tell my son I love him. Like, sometimes, like, he'll come out just like, I just love you so much. Like, you did this, I love you, blah, 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 I see you, I love you. Like, I love telling him how much I love him. But I realized that me telling him over and over and over that I loved him wasn't necessarily encouraging. But when I said to him, I really respect the fact that, every morning when it's time for you to go to school, you have all your stuff ready to go, and, you sit down at the table, you share a little bit of breakfast, and then we're out of the door, and I don't have to fuss with you. I respect that so much about you. Do you know what happened after that? Every single morning, this little boy was like up, just because there was something when I'm like, I respect the fact that you did that, or I respect the fact that, when and I told him this before, because he's like, in his friends group, he's the friend that friends talk to. And I told him, I was just like, I really respect the fact that when your friends are confiding in you, you really hold it in the vault. Like, that is, I respect that about you. And I remember like my son like looking at me like, you know, like, oh, like almost like there was this moment of acknowledgement, like that's a great quality and characteristic, as opposed to me saying, you know, son, I love the fact that you have so many friends and they trust you. It's totally different than, I respect the fact that you keep your friends' confidence, like, right? So encouraging, figuring out how to encourage your child. And then the S stands for supplicating, and supplicating is all about helping them to, you know, take the word and integrate the word into their life, and take principles and take wisdom and integrate it into their life, like helping them to be able to not be so overly dependent on you that every time something goes well or something goes bad, they have to run back to you, but that they can actually do that on their own because you have given them the proper resources to be able to do it. And so I mean, that's just one acronym that's in this book, and it comes with all those goodies, like all those goodies. So when it breaks down chairs, like, oh my gosh, and chairs is all about transitioning into that respect language. Like, this book is absolutely phenomenal. It has, again, I mentioned at the top, transformed my relationship with my son. You know, I feel like if you are a mother of a son, it can be incredibly beneficial, whether you are a single mother, you're a co-parenting mother like me, you're a divorced mom, you're a married mom, whatever version of being a mother of a son that you find yourself in, this book is a solid resource to support you in having a healthy, respectful, and loving relationship with your son. Truly, in my mind, this is the way my relationship is with my son. Like, this is my dream relationship. Like, he is himself completely, but he respects me and he honors me in such a way that, like, I don't have to fight to be included in his life. Like, I don't have to, you know, sneak and manipulate to get information from him about what's going on. I literally just talk to him, and because he knows I respect him, he opens up like a book, and he's just like, yeah, mom, this is what's going on. You know, Valentine's Day just passed, and he called me on Valentine's Day. He's just like, yeah, mom, you know, this is what I have going on, and, you know, what do you think? And I'm like, thank you for calling me and asking me what I think about Valentine's Day. Like, thank you, you know, but not in a weird, like, you know, mom, I don't know what to, like, not like in a, I don't have enough confidence, but it was more from the perspective of, mom, I'm just checking in because I want to be a good guy, and I want to, you know, be a good dude, and like, like it was just a very sweet moment, because he didn't need me, but he made the choice to come and seek information from me on a subject that, you know, he's entering into in the most respectful way. And I hands down believe that sort of dialogue and conversation and opportunity to still pour into him at this stage in his life is because of this book, The Respect Effect. So I highly, highly, highly recommend it for mothers of sons. One of the main reasons why you guys didn't see me holding up the book while I was talking about the book is because the way that I listened to the book was through Audible. And I highly recommend that you read this book through Audible. It is a very rich, a content-rich book, and I think that a lot of the concepts are not common, and they are a little bit harder to absorb. I think especially since parenting is such a sensitive topic, that it is worth having it in audio form, so that way you can hear these concepts over and over and over again, and also so that way you can like refer back to specific chapters that are super, super relevant to what it is that you're experiencing right now. Because remember, I said whether you are a mother of a son of 2 or a mother of a son of 20, like, this book is helpful if you are interested in cultivating the type of relationship that's long lasting, one that is full of love, one that is full of respect, one that is full of honor, and one that truly supports the like ideal image that you had of yourself as like the mother of an incredible like son. Like, I can't speak highly of this book enough. Like, people always ask me like, what's on my parenting shelf, or like, you know, how did you get so lucky? Like, how did you, you know, do this with your son? There are a slew of other books that I read when he was younger, but especially now, like moving through his teenage years, this book has been incredibly helpful, and I just find that the Audible format is the absolute best format. So the link in the description box, if you guys are interested in getting this on Audible, or excuse me, if you guys are interested in getting this book, I will link it to Audible. You're definitely more than welcome to purchase it. But again, based on my experience, I'm a person who loves reading books, but having listened to this now several times, I've at least listened to it a dozen times, I can honestly say that had I had to sit down and like open and like read it line by line as a mother with my particular parenting style, I would have had so much resistance. I would have been like reading something and like slammed the book shut and like shoved it across the room. But you know, just having it in my ears and just listening to it definitely opened me up to really be able to absorb all the great content. And I really want that for you as a mom, if you're watching this, but also like truly I want this for your sons. Like that's how significant this book is that like in my heart, I'm like, every mother of a son who's watching my video and can appreciate my recommendations, I am so freaking excited for your sons because it changes the game. So thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you guys. I just really appreciate you guys, and I cannot thank you enough for supporting my work. So until next time, I will talk to you very soon. Bye.